Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Being Unapologetically Authentic with me, your host, Jean Tian. Today, let's continue the conversation around communication. How many of you have been in situations where you have asked another person to do something? So, for example, you may have asked your kids to take out the trash, or perhaps ask your husband to wash the dishes. Or perhaps you were asking your manager to implement a change, to buy into the change that you're looking to implement at work. If you're like me, it probably happens at least once a week, perhaps even once a day, where we're asking somebody to help us with something or to believe in what we are putting out, what we're trying to sell. Now, oftentimes when we are having to repeat ourselves, or when we feel that we need to push the idea forward because the other person isn't necessarily getting it or buying it, there's an underlying reason for that. And that underlying reason really goes back into this concept of being heard, feeling seen, feeling understood, and being accepted and appreciated. Because when somebody tells you no too many times, you feel that oftentimes we feel like our value, our contributions, our strengths are not fully recognized, especially when it comes to work. Perhaps if we've asked the husband to do something and the same thing 10 different times, and he still fails to forget, then we feel like we're not valued or important to him, or to that person, or to the friend. And so, if this has happened to you, I think this is a great conversation to have in terms of what our objectives are when we're communicating with another person. Now, we've had the conversations about sharing ideas, and for the most part, that's what a conversation is. That is what communication is about. We share ideas, we can come up with ideas or projects or solutions together. But there are also times when my idea may not be the same as your idea, or your idea may not be the same, maybe not the same as their idea. And this creates that inner conflict or that outer conflict in terms of not having full alignment or having disagreement with each other. And I know we've gone through the pause method in the prior episodes, and this isn't what we're going to review today. Instead, we're going to look at the underlying motivation when it comes to what we're looking to do when trying to sell somebody an idea, trying to sell our husbands that taking out the trash at this time, right now, is the best idea. When we're trying to sell our managers that implementing this change is going to do well, that it's going to benefit the company. So these are the ideas that we're looking to sell. And when people say no to us with the same things, or they ignore us with the same things, more often than not, then we start to feel like we're not heard. We start to feel like we're not important to them. We start to feel frustrated. And quite frankly, it's a little demoralizing sometimes, right? So if this is you, what do you do? Well, first and foremost, we all know that we can't force somebody to do something they don't want to do. And I think you'll hear from the greatest salesmen out there that, well, then you want to convince them that this is what they want to do, which is great. But even the greatest salesman will be told no on multiple occasions. So what makes that person the greatest salesman? What makes that person persuasive? What makes that person effective, in the sense that they're always getting their point across? So if you haven't caught it, I use the word always. And I think that is the biggest fallacy. There will always be people who disagree with you. And there will always be times when you are told no. But that doesn't mean you are not appreciated or valued or seen or heard. And because we can't make the other person do what we're asking them to do or do what we're telling them to do, we have to start looking at the reasons why we're asking in order for us to be able to address this feeling of being unappreciated. What do I mean by that? So, let's say, for example, we're asking our husbands or our spouses or our wives, our children to take out the trash. And we're asking every single day after dinner, it's the same thing. They know that this request is coming, and yet they don't do it. They don't do it proactively, and they're certainly not doing it when you're asking them to do it. Instead, they're like, yeah, I'll get to it. I will get to it later. And later comes and they don't get to it. One day passes and you're like, oh, okay, fine, I'll do it. 2 day passes and it's still the same thing. 3 day passes, 10-year passes, 15 years pass, and it's the same thing over and over again. And essentially, you feel like your role in this family is not important because your wishes, your requests are not being accommodated. They're not being, quote unquote, heard. But is that really what's happening? Meaning, the fact that your children are not taking out the trash every day after dinner, does that really mean that you are not heard? Does that really mean that you're not appreciated by them? Does that really mean that you have no value to the family that you're working with here? Similarly, at work, if you keep putting proposal after proposal after proposal together and your manager is dismissive of them, or he says no, or you don't even get a chance to present them, does that mean that you are just not getting valued or heard or seen? The answer is sometimes, but not always. So how do you tell the difference then when it is a situation where you're truly not being heard versus a situation where perhaps it's something else? And what would that something else be? So when I work with my clients, what I see is that the desire for somebody to move forward with a project, to execute a project, it's usually the way that they get frustrated is when the project isn't executed to the exact way that they expect it to. People aren't doing what they're asking them to do. Instead, people are either slower or perhaps they decided to take a different route than what you've asked for them to do. And then this brings up a level of frustration and a feelings of ineffectiveness, feelings of not being valued in the company. And then we start to create stories, at least my clients do, they start to create stories about how they're just not being valued for the contributions that they have, that the strength that they bring forward is not being recognized at work. But is this really true? You can tell when you're not being valued when you first start looking at yourself. I know this is going to be weird when I say this, or maybe it's not the obvious when I say it. You can tell if you are not being valued if you start looking at the way you value yourself. Do you even value yourself? Meaning this, do you truly believe in what you're putting forward? Or are there questions around it? Are you truly listening to yourself? And it's not just for work. So here's the thing, when somebody used to tell me that, right, in my own personal development and in my own personal coaching, people would ask me, are you actually listening to yourself? Do you even value yourself? And I'm like, yeah, of course. I believe in what I'm putting forward. And I think to the extent of maybe 98%, that may have been true, but there is that percentage, that 2% out there, that many times it was this question of, do I really believe in what I'm putting out? Is this really going to work? And even to the smallest thing in your life, you can ask yourself, are you even listening to yourself? So, for example, as a working mom, I'm pretty much on the run for most of the time, and if not all of the time. And there are just those days when my body can't run anymore. There are just those times when my body just needs to rest. But how many of you have felt this way and felt like, well, I'm just going to push through? I'm going to push through because this too shall pass. Oh, my, like right now, my shoulder is killing me. Oh, but this too shall pass. It's okay. I don't need to get it addressed. I'm okay. I'll just push through and do this podcast recording. I will just push through and wash the dishes later. I'll just push through and do all the things that I had on my to-do list. And if you are doing what I'm doing in that instance, the question is that, are you really listening to yourself? Because your body is telling you something. Your body is telling you something. Your physical body is telling you something. And you're dismissing it. You're pushing through. You are not listening to it. Or how many of you have had instincts on something, this gut reaction, and it just didn't make sense from a brain perspective? It didn't make sense. Oh my gosh, well, I can't listen to that. People will think I'm crazy. But that's your intuition telling you something. That's another form of communication that your body, your infinite wisdom, is sharing with you. And by dismissing it, you're not listening to yourself there. So if this has happened to you and you're sitting here wondering, why is no one listening to me? Why is it that I feel invincible sometimes? Do they really value my wisdom? The answer probably is no, because you are not valuing your own wisdom. You are not listening to yourself. You do not have full conviction in what you're putting forth. Most importantly, you do not have conviction in you. And so if you do not value yourself, the question is, why should others value you? Why should others buy what you're putting out if you don't even believe in what you're putting out? So despite kind of the obvious, right? The obvious being that, well, if I say it and other people don't do it, then that's their problem. Maybe, but for the most part, it's going to be your problem because you do not have enough conviction or value of yourself that other people are picking up on your lack of it. Believe it or not, we have very sensitive radars when it comes to what other people are putting out. People, despite whether or not they're going to admit it, we all have that sniff test. And the sniff test will tell us if somebody's really kind of like shady about it. And it's not just about confidence, because you can fake confidence, right? Make it till you break it. If you just do it confidently, then others will buy it. Yeah, maybe in the beginning, but at the end, it's not going to work. People will see through it. So it is so important when you're looking at your communication, it's to look at why you're asking for this particular thing, why you're demanding to see it, because a demand in something is an ability or this desire to control the other person. And the fact that you can control this other person will give you that validation that what you're putting out is good. But here's the thing, that validation will not come. Because even if the other person is doing what you're asking them to do, they can do it for many reasons. Perhaps somebody else is telling them to do it. Perhaps there's nothing better for them to do, whatever it is, but it does not mean that you are putting out something good. The way you know when something is truly good is when you truly believe in everything that you're putting out, without a doubt. And that doesn't mean that it's perfect, that it's an inability to make any mistakes. That's not what it means. It means that what you're putting out, you truly believe in, right, wrong, or anything else. is that you truly believe in that this will be beneficial to the person that you're asking them to do it. This will be beneficial to the organization for which you're proposing it. This will be beneficial to the family should there be garbage taken out. This will be beneficial to the child because they'll learn responsibility. And not to mention, it'll be beneficial to you because it helps you with one of the house chores. This is that process of looking at what you're putting out and what you're asking of others to understand what's the underlying motivation for it. What's the underlying energy for it? Is it one where you truly believe it'll be beneficial for everyone and that you're doing it and you're proposing it and you're asking for it because there is value in it? And if you have that, then other people will see it too. And if they don't, it's okay. It's not to say that just because you believe in it, other people will pick it up immediately. And I think it was Steve Jobs where people didn't buy what he was putting out at first. But you know what? He had so much conviction in what he was doing that he decided to forego all the no's and continue with the yes. Because he had that vision. He had that conviction. He had the belief in himself and in the stuff that he was putting out. And so the people that he proposed it to at first couldn't see it. That's okay. That didn't make it any less conviction that he had for himself. He wasn't trying to force them to see it. But he believed in it so much that he decided that he was going to take it and show everyone just how good it really is, just show everyone the vision that he had. And so when we look at the communication, when we look at what we're putting forward, it's important to look at why we're asking for certain things, why we're communicating what we're communicating. Is it perhaps a subconscious or unconscious desire to seek validation? Or is it truly something you're so in love with, that you're so passionate about, that you believe in it so much? Because you will immediately see that for those things that you truly see the benefit of, that you truly believe in it, and that when you truly believe in yourself, the feeling is different. The energy behind it is different. And the way we put it forth will be different. And the way that people receive it will also be different. And we'll start to see so many different opportunities in front of us and not just the straight and narrow, straight and direct path, because oftentimes it's not going to be. Sometimes we have to go zigzag in order to get to our destination. Sometimes we have to say it more than once. Sometimes we have to show it in different ways. It's not just about asking once and getting it done. That doesn't prove anything. That doesn't prove that you are valued. It doesn't prove that you're not valued. It doesn't prove any of this. The way to be seen and to be heard is to start with yourself. So, what is your body telling you today that you can start to listen to yourself? Perhaps it's a little nap. Perhaps it's to sit down and just drink a cup of coffee. Perhaps your body is dehydrated and to drink some water. Perhaps it's asking to stand up and walk around and get some fresh air. We start with the little things to build that trust in our ability to see and understand and hear ourselves so that we can be heard by others as well. So if you're ever feeling unheard or unseen or unvalued, my first question to you is, where are you not valuing yourself? Where are you not listening to yourself? Where are you not seeing yourself for the amazingness that exists within you? And only after we can discover that aspect and address it and release it and understand, start to see the beauty that is within us, all of us, we can start to look externally. So, if this episode has been helpful, if you've enjoyed it, please like, subscribe, and share, because I think we can all use a little self-introspection and also a little different kind of perspective when it comes to communication. Until next time, bye guys.